Hey.
Let's all say it together. 1, 2, 3.
Welcome, Bob. Man, you get kind of used to things.
I'm off my game this
We're talking about ruts and rhythms here today. And the shirt has thrown us all off a little bit. You got it. Not a problem. Woo! Here we go.
Thank you, Bob.
You're welcome. Thank you. We're talking about ruts and rhythms today. So, man, it's good to be here. And still can't wait till we get everyone back in the room. But for those who are in the room virtually, hey, glad you're here with us. We're going to talk a little bit about ruts and rhythms today. We just finished a series on Micah. And I'm going to talk a little bit about Micah's partner. And his partner was Isaiah. I'm not sure they knew each other. They probably did. They were prophesying in the same time, but in different places. Micah was in Moraseth, about 30 miles away from Jerusalem. Isaiah was in Jerusalem. But the same problems, the culture and the country had the same problems, and they both had this very similar word of God. Micah took a lot longer to write. He was long-winded. So he'd be more like me. And then there's Micah, more like Jeremy, who can say in a succinct way what Bob has to, stumble through for hours. By the way, well, I'll get to Jeremy's sermon in a minute. So we're going to especially look today at a part of Micah's story and really Isaiah's version of it. And that is Micah's famous part, Isaiah chapter 6. So in Isaiah chapter 6, there's this courtroom kind of scene, and it's building up God against the people, and God is accusing the people of not being faithful, and the people are saying, what else can we do? We've done everything we can do. We worship in all the ways you tell us to do it, and God says, you've missed the boat. You missed the point. What I wanted you to do is do justice, and to love mercy, and to walk humbly with your God. That's what I asked you to do. And the people were saying, no, we thought we were supposed to offer certain kind of sacrifices, and we thought we were supposed to bring certain kind of offerings. And so the same discussion is happening 30 miles up the road in Jerusalem with Isaiah and the people there. And Isaiah's version of this happens in Isaiah 58. And as Isaiah 58, he's looking at specifically fasting, and the people are saying, we're doing all the fasting we can do. I mean, Atkins diet. We're doing every kind of fast you can think of. We're keto. We're doing every kind of, we're not eating anything. We're not doing. And God says, no, that's not what I'm asking you to do. I'm not asking you to fast like that. I do want you to fast, but not in the ways that you think is satisfying, because they had this check the box mentality. And we're going to come back to the Sermon on the Mount in just a minute and say that's exactly this kind of mentality Jesus was preaching against in the Sermon on the Mount. They're just going to check the box. They came, they fasted, they came, they sang, they came, they listened to a sermon, they sang, they came, they took communion, and they thought, hey, we're done. Now we're going to go eat lunch and live life however we want to live it. And that's not what God had in mind. So in what Micah ended up saying, hey, I want you to do justice. Well, Isaiah's version of do justice is verse 10, when he says, if you spend yourselves on behalf of the hungry and satisfy the needs of the oppressed, then your light will rise in the darkness and your night will become like noonday. So what was do justice for Micah becomes spend yourself for the poor and the oppressed in Isaiah. Everybody nod with me, saying, okay, this is, because we're just kind of setting the groundwork for where we're headed here. That's what God was asking for, not just come check the box. And this was happening with other prophets as well. He wanted acts of justice, all right, but he also wanted this other kind of worship from the heart not this check the box thing. And all the other prophets are in the same boat. Amos and Hosea and Jeremiah and Ezekiel specifically, they all preach, they all talk about the people coming to worship. And some of them talk about preaching in Ezekiel 33. And some of them talk about singing in Amos chapter 5. And Hosea and Jeremiah, they all talk about all the things we do too in worship. And the people come, but they don't have a heart for God. They're just checking the box. And Jesus hit all those things in chapter 6 of the Sermon on the Mount. He hit all those things. Don't just come and go through the motions. So many people, religious people, just going through the motions. He said, that's not what I'm asking for. And so, Micah and Isaiah are pointing toward this deeper intimacy with God. And it includes doing justice, but it's more than just doing justice. It goes beyond just doing justice. In Micah, besides do justice, he says, I want you to love mercy. And I want you to walk humbly with your God. But Isaiah addresses a little bit different need, or perhaps it's the same need for intimacy with God, but just in a different way. He talks about it from a different perspective. But Micah and Isaiah both are addressing what I'm going to call our identity issue. And I hope you can remember the movie Lion King. So just nod at home, nod yes, go plug it in if you forgot. Lion King and Mufasa and Simba, the dad and the son, right? And there's this great moment where Mufasa comes back in a vision to his son and he says, Simba, you've forgotten who you are. Remember who you are. And that's what I think Micah and Isaiah are trying to help us with. We're trying to remember who we are. And I'm going to get to how Isaiah especially does that in just a minute. It has to do with ruts and rhythms, by the way. Not the Chicago Cubs. Nothing to do with the Cubs. Humans, and this is God through Micah and through Isaiah trying to help us, we have this problem. And the problem is this belief that more is better, or that more is the remedy for whatever ails us. We just need to have more. And this is our problem, and Micah is going to try and help us with that, and Isaiah. Here's what has become. I ask myself this question, and people ask me this question all my life. At the end of the day, what have you done today? What'd you do today? What'd you do today? And underlying that, there comes this idea that I had to do something productive to make my day count. You know, and sometimes when I haven't had much to do in a day, I'll even have to try and make stuff up. You know? And I don't know if you've ever done this, but I've also done this when someone walks in the room, I'm not doing anything, I'm kind of doing nothing, and I'll try and act busy all of a sudden. Because somehow busy is better than not busy. And so humans, we become, it's all about more, like more money or making a bigger name for myself. This is what I have to do to be good enough. Because that's what my life has become about, is being good enough. That's, who am I? Well, I'm my stuff, and I need to get more stuff. Or I need to get cooler stuff. Sometimes I have enough stuff, but my stuff is old. It's not cool. And sometimes I need more people, more followers, you know. I don't know. Sometimes you feel like you're in a follower contest with some people, like, wow, that person has so many followers. Well, I don't even know what that's about, but I hear people have that problem. But sometimes, you know, it's about getting a promotion. And, you know, I started out in my football journey, as I told you, as an assistant coach. Well, then I wanted to be like a coordinator, because that's better than just a position coach. And then maybe I could be an assistant head coach, and then maybe a head, because I want to get promotions. Or sometimes I want to get an award, and I'll talk about an award in a while. But there's always more and more and more. So I'm reading this book during the pandemic, and it's a great time to read because, you know, what else you got to do except act busy? And so I'm I'm reading this book, and it's called The Ruthless Elimination of Hurry. And let me tell you, it is awesome, but one of those kind of books that's great, but, a little too great in some points, some areas that are convicting. You know what I'm saying? You've read a book like that? So he's talking about this, and he says, ultimately, nothing in this life, apart from God, can satisfy our true desires. We all say amen to that, right? Nothing but God. But tragically, we continue to chase after our desires, and the result becomes a chronic state of restlessness. Or worse, angst, anger, anxiety, disillusionment, depression, all which lead to a life of hurry, a life of busyness, overload, shopping, materialism, careerism, a life of more and more and more, which in turn makes you even more restless. And the cycle spirals out of control. We want more. We want more. We want more. It's in this moment, it's in this very moment that Isaiah speaks to us, Isaiah 58. So instead of more, God offers 3 ifs and a then. And here it is. I'm going to read this to you, Isaiah 58. We're past the famous part of Isaiah 58. I always like the part that's after the famous part, And here's what it says. First of all, the famous part ends, remember, if you spend yourself for the poor, then your light will rise in the darkness. Then he also says, he keeps going, and if you keep your feet from breaking the Sabbath, and if you call the Sabbath a delight, and if you honor the Sabbath by not going your own way, then you will find joy in the Lord. He says it's the Sabbath, keeping the Sabbath, and I'm like, no. Sabbath is everything that's not me. And Sabbath is everything that is not for sure my culture. And so I don't even know, what that means. Sabbath. If I'm going to keep the Sabbath. Well, okay, so I'm going to read a little bit about it. Sabbath, Sabbat, means actually stop. Or in the context of God and His instructions, stop working. Now, it can mean rest, but only as it means I've stopped working and now I'm resting. But it means stop or cease. It means quit doing what you're doing. Stop it. Work. Stop work. Stop work? And I'm thinking, that's not the way you make it in my life. That's not how you get ahead. That's not how you be successful. You don't stop, you go. And it's always go. And it's always go. And it's to go faster. Let's go stronger. Let's go. I've told this before. I was talking to students. Sometimes students come up to me and they tell me, I want to talk to you, but I know you're so busy. And that just hurts my feelings really deep inside. Because I don't want to present myself as a guy who's way too busy to listen to someone else. But they also come and say, I'm so busy, I can't get anything done. I said, one person came up to me one time and said, I am busy, 24/7, 5 days a week. I thought, wait a minute. Doesn't 24/7 and 5 days a week doesn't jive, does it? Okay, but the idea of just being busy. I got to go, I got to do more. Well, the Sabbath was part of the life-giving rhythm. So we're talking about ruts. My rut was getting into work. And as a football coach, here's how it happened to me. It got to where I was thinking, honestly, 24/7 about football all the time. I'd wake up thinking about it. I'd go to sleep thinking about it. I'd pretend to be watching TV, but I'd be thinking about football. I pretend to be in a conversation with somebody, but in my mind, I'm somewhere else. I'm at church. I'm doing all the routine of church, but I'm thinking about football. And that's all I could think about. I mean, I was either thinking about strategy, I was thinking about training, I was thinking about our schedule, I was thinking about recruiting, I was thinking about raising money to get better stuff for our team. Always, 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 always. And what I needed to do was stop. But I couldn't stop because you know what I thought? If I stopped, then the people who I'm competing against would get ahead of me. And I can't get behind, because if I get behind, I won't get the award, I won't get the promotion. So I got to do more. I got to do it faster. I got to keep going. I got to stop. But the rhythm of God was, I'm going to work. I'm going to create in the daytime, and then I'm going to stop. And then the second day, he's going to get up, and he's going to, I wonder if God gets up, actually. But he begins to work. And on the second day, he works, and that night, he doesn't. And then the third day. And on the third day, he works, and then it's night. You notice this rhythm, work in the day, not work at night. 6 days of this, 6 days. And in the day he created, in the night, he didn't. And then he comes to that seventh day, and it says he rested from his work. He rested from his work. And this rhythm is the rhythm he invites us, he instructs us to have in our lives. So in Exodus, as he's giving out the 10 Commandments, and in Deuteronomy, the same 10 Commandments, he says, keep the Sabbath. And remember, I created the earth in Exodus. And in Deuteronomy, he says, keep the Sabbath. And remember, you were once slaves. And I'm wondering if he's thinking, I don't want you to now become, you were slaves of the Egyptians. Don't become a slave of your work. I think that might be part of his message. The life-giving rhythm. But Sabbath also speaks to our identity. And I want to mention this idea about identity. Sabbath reminds me that I'm a human being, not a human doing. I'm not just what I do. And yet, when you come up to someone and you're meeting for the first time, you ask them the question, 2 questions, where are you from? What do you do? I'm not my job. Sabbath reminds me, I'm not my job. I'm not my position or title. People will sometimes introduce me to someone else, and they'll say, this is Bob, and he used to be the head football coach at ACU. Like, that's cool. I had some other positions, they don't ever say those, because it's not so cool. I would rather they say, this is Bob. He's the Son of God, and he's a follower of Jesus. Why do I got to be a head football coach? Like, that's going to make me something. Right? I remember when I was a camp director, and this is after I was a head football coach. This is after I was dean of students. And people would come to me like at homecoming and stuff, come back, and they'd ask, so what do you do now at ACU? And I would struggle with that because, I'm getting ready to say I'm a camp director, and in their mind they're going to say, well, when do you get a real job? I mean, seriously, right? Because you used to have a real job because you were a football coach. You were cool then. So Sabbath, it reminds me I'm who I am. I'm not my job. Being busy and being productive doesn't make me a better person. I'm not my accomplishments. I'm not my trophy. And I've told this story here before, but I was working with a student after I retired from coaching, and I was working with a student. And I was in a student success program, and it was for students who were struggling. And I would talk to them about their time management. I would talk to them about their study skills and this kind of stuff. And I'm having this one-on-one meeting with the student. And I have behind me on my wall, I have this plaque that says I'm Coach of the Year, Lone Star Conference Coach of the Year, which I was 1 year. And And he's looking at that plaque. Now, this guy's come from Virginia, and his dad teaches at Virginia Tech, and he is a huge college football fan. And he's looking at my plaque. I'm thinking, cool. He notices my plaque. Pretty good. So finally, he keeps doing it. I said, yeah, you see my plaque up there? He says, yeah. One question. I've never heard of the Lone Star Conference. What is that? Yeah, that's not who I am. And Sabbath reminds me, I'm not my job. I'm not my list of accomplishments. I'm not my stuff. I got some stuff. You know, you got some stuff, and pretty soon your stuff, have you ever known, you own stuff, but then pretty soon your stuff owns you? You know? Man, I have a house, and sometimes I think, oh, why do I have a house? I got so much stuff to do around my house. I used to have a boat, and this is the joke, but it's real too, you know. Two happiest days of my life, the day I got my boat and the day I got rid of my boat. Man, that boat was a pain. And so much our stuff owns us, or our desire for more stuff. Man, God says, stop. Stop. Stop accumulating. Stop running like you're on the treadmill, you know. And you know the thing about the treadmill, you're running, but you never go anywhere. I'm not my net worth, and thank God I'm not my debt either. Back when Jesus was preaching the Sermon on the Mount, you can't serve money and mammon. You can't serve God and mammon, money. You can't do that. And then it hits me that this understanding about my identity and what's not my identity, not who I am, helps me with doing justice too. How do I spend myself? Well, how do I stop? So, these Psalms, as we head toward the close of our sermon today, and we're going to sing an identity song. Whew, God speaking, be still. As we sang earlier this morning, be still. Bob, be still. And know that I am God. God says, I will be exalted, not you. I will be exalted among the nations. And I will be exalted among the earth. And not just be still, but also, he also wants us to gather and worship. And so this rhythm of life that we're talking about, not the rut of work 24/7, 5 days a week. Not that rut, but this rhythm of work and rest. Because, you know, God invented work. And he also commanded us to work. So I want to be proud and do a good job in our work. But know that our work doesn't define us. Our work doesn't control us. And so we have this rhythm. And in the rhythm is a time to be still. And in the rhythm is a time to come worship. So as the psalm says, worship the Lord with gladness. Come before him with joyful songs. Know that it is God, the Lord. He's who he made us, and we belong to him. So a healthy rhythm of life includes regular time alone with God and worship with the family of God. I'll have to admit right off the bat, I don't know how to do Sabbath. But I'm investigating. And I'm going to ask you to investigate too. If you got ideas about Sabbath, I'd love to hear about that. About how to take a time, a moment in our regular rhythm of life and just be still. Just be still. And hear the voice of God say, you're my son. No matter what else is going on in your life, you're my son, you're my child. You belong to me. I've chosen you, not because you're a good football coach, not because you're a good Bible teacher. I haven't chosen you for that. I've chosen you because you're my son and I love you. I'm a child of God. That's who I am. And so I'm like Mufasa. I'm like listening to Mufasa. Mufasa is Sabbath, speaking to Simba and says, remember, Bob, who you are. Sabbath reminds me who I am. I'm not a human doing. I'm a human being. Let's sing together. I think one of the best identity songs we sing these days. The idea that Sabbath is telling us when we be still, when we stop working and listen to God. This is what we'll hear when we do that.